Okay, it's the Between Part 2. We have one active threat. That active threat is the St. James's Street ghost. And you have a couple of questions and opportunities. The first question is, which part of the house is the ghost attached to? And the opportunity is it gives you access to a brand new move that everybody can use from here on out called Old Bones. And the second question is actually how to take care of the ghost, which is how can we get this ghost to pass on to the next world? And the opportunity is to perform a quieting ritual. You have acquired a few clues already, or 2 clues up to that, towards these questions, either or. The first is that the clocks in 18 St. James's Street are off by a few hours. It's actually off by it says 3 hours here, but it's actually 15 hours because you guys are there in the afternoon. Or no, it would be 9 hours, like 9 hours, right? Yeah. In any case, the clocks are turned to 9:30 when you're there, and they're just like off by that much. So that's a weird detail. Another thing is in the library, or the little sort of like book collection in the salon, all of the books were very, very dusty except for one, which is a salacious novel about a woman who killed her philandering husband. That is your other clue about the St. James's Street ghost. And we had a couple of like kind of supernatural encounters there. In particular, there was an incident where the room became suddenly very, very cold, and we kind of just left our 2 hunters who were at the house right now, Willoughby and Alexander, kind of left them like in the sort of main foyer, ready to continue their investigation. And then the other 2 characters were at the mortuary, trying to find out information about Ginny Hess, the young maid at 18 St. James's Street, who was supposed to have been killed by this ghost, who died of fright. And during all that, basically what happened is Ives had to hide from D.I. Pettigrew, who was coming into the mortuary. And in doing so, Ives decided to crawl into like a body storage drawer, and knowing full well what could happen, because we talked about it, encountered a sort of dark being that touched his cheek and caused him to wither up into grave dust. And here is where we're going to learn a really important part of the game called the Janus Mask. So these characters we're always going to see these characters in various timelines. A lot of times these timelines are them dying or facing some terrible darkness or calamity. We're going to role play that. We're going to see it happen. And then we can use what's called the Janus Mask to sort of rewind it and do a different timeline instead. And the Janus Mask it's a metaphor. There's no literal mask in the fiction, but it has multiple components. Each of you on your character sheet has access to 2 aspects of the Janus Mask, the mask of the past and the mask of the future. And so if Ives wants to, Ives can invoke the Janus Mask, choose either the mask of the past or the mask of the future, mark one of the options there. And what we do is we do a different die result. So it was a 6- that got him turned into grave dust. Invoking the Janus Mask will bump it up a success tier to a 7 to 9, okay? Which means it's a success with a complication rather than an outright calamity, right? So that's something that Ives can do. If Ives wants to continue playing, being in the game, should probably do. There's also another aspect of the Janus Mask that's currently available. It's part of it's part of the St. James's Street ghost, and it's called the Mask of the Unquiet. You don't know what that mask does, but you can choose to invoke that aspect of the Janus Mask instead of the past or the future. And you can only do it once, and only one character gets to do it. So you can snatch it right now if you want to, Ives, or you can save it for someone else to do. But in any case, that's kind of where we're at in terms of what's going to happen with Ives. Basically, Fraser knew what he was getting into, did it. It went poorly, but Fraser can dial it back with the Janus Mask if you wish, Fraser. So what do you think?
Yeah, I'll not die.
Fair enough. Would you like to do the Mask of the Past, the Mask of the Future, or the one-time use Mask of the Unquiet?
Yeah, they're all very interesting, like the Gilded Door and everything. But I've been thinking about the flashback for like ever, so I'm gonna do that one because I'm most excited about that as a player, I think.
The Mask of the Past?
Yeah.
Okay, so for the Mask of the Past, you have to mark the first box. And if you're ready to do it now, you can do it now, or you can wait till the next phase. It's up to you.
Yeah. I'm ready for that, I think.
So let's read it. This says, narrate a flashback to the time when when you were in your mother's womb that shows even then dark entities were interested in you.
Yeah. And so I think what the scene that we get is we see like a young Victorian woman all dressed up and going someplace, and then we see her enter a church, and she's sitting there in a like being subjected to a sermon, and we see the camera like pan into her stomach, and we see me as as a little infant growing, and I'm not sure about gestation weeks or whatever, but I'm like fairly well along. And as the sermon is undergoing, we see as the mother listens, I'm also hearing the sermon, and the sermon like wakes me up, and I start listening, and the womb goes from like very dark to very light, like too light, and I'm not sure how to show it exactly, but maybe there's like white tendrils that go from the ear going into like the brain.
I love it. So there, I mentioned last time we played that we're not supposed to know anything about the characters until we learn about it in play. This is an example of that. We don't know anything about Ives prior to starting, but now we know something about Ives, right? We know that when Ives was in the womb, literally, he reacted to some spiritual things going on during a mass. So that's fantastic. Thank you. That bumps your die result up to a 7 to 9. So we dial it back, and instead, what happens? You succeed. You avoid being found by DI Pettigrew. That pale, ghostly entity in the dark robes is still floating above you. That's still a thing happening. They do still reach down and they do still touch your cheek, but instead of you withering up and dying, a shudder passes over you, and I'm giving you the condition drawn to death. What are you thinking or feeling right now?
Am thinking, I think it's like a daredevil reaction where I'm like both extremely enthused and have like a adrenaline rush, and sort of hoped and feared that this would come to pass, um but also terrified of what would happen. Like I always yearn for them to appear but don't know the exact outcome.
Nice, thank you.
where's the
That's fine.
where's the conditions there?
It's very top of the character sheet,
ah,
below the abilities.
Gotcha, thanks.
And I think Willoughby should have smells of onions, right? I want to cut over to Dr. Satyendra. So, Dr. Tagore, the DI Pettigrew goes in there. You don't know what Ives is doing to hide. What are you doing right now?
I think following on his heels kind of rapidly, saying, just trying to distract his attention as much as possible, sort of that we need to talk just a little more about these recent cases from the river. I have a duty to help the crown here, and if you don't let me have access to these bodies, what can I do? Blah 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 blah.
And he says, well, all right, fine. And he's kind of, and that's when you kind of hear him say like, oh, look at the state of this place, because there's like papers everywhere. You don't see Ives at all. And he says, so is Pate giving you trouble? Is he not letting you look at the body that we dragged out last night?
I'm curious about this one. I'm also curious about an older case as well. So my attention's sort of split here. What about Miss Hess?
Miss Hess.
Scared to death by a ghost, supposedly, who dies of fright in this
area. Oh, the St. James's Street case. That was weeks ago. What interest? I mean, she's grave dirt by now.
Yeah, it just seems peculiar though to die of fright in this era of enlightenment. Like
I see. I know. You can take the doctor out of the academy, but you can't take the academy out of the doctor. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
Give me the information move. I think he might give you something interesting. Do roll it with presence. 2d6 plus your presence score.
Right. Presence is 0. So 6.
He says, it's actually quite funny that you should bring up the Hess case. Let's just say that someone with a lot of influence in Scotland Yard has been talking about that case lately. And, I think they're going to put another man on it, revitalize it. In fact, I think there might be a detective going over to case the house, or to take a look at the house again this week, maybe even the next day or two. It's funny that this should be a thing that you're interested in and that someone else is interested in. And I mean, yes, it's a curious set of circumstances and facts for sure, but it kind of gives you a suspicious look.
Murders draw a certain bit of notoriety. I'm curious, has her body been moved onto a pauper's grave by now?
Well, I don't know those details, but and he kind of like, he's clearly like kind of like, you can tell he's suddenly more interested in the St. James's Street dying of fright ghost case. He says, maybe I should pop over there. I've got some time this afternoon. And he says, and he just leaves. So that's your 6- result is D.I. Pettigrew is now, it might be up in your business over at 18 St. James's Street. Speaking of 18 St. James's Street, so the two of you are in the foyer. Alexander, you are chilled to the bone, literally right now and metaphorically later on. You notice that Willoughby really reeks of onion right now. Let's just have the scene with the two of you in the foyer while someone gets Mrs. Beale, who still has not come to meet you.
Alexander is going to like rub his hands together and kind of raise them to his mouth to breathe in, and also just give Willoughby a look and say, did you fall into the vegetable bin?
No, sir. It just happens to be that kitchen downstairs, and I'm pulling on a cigarette again. It happens to be that kitchen, my eyes are watering. Kitchen downstairs, there's something very strange downstairs. The help seems to have, there's definitely a haunting happening.
There is certainly a haunting.
And then at that point you hear, oh, haunting. Oh, I can't stand that word anymore. And you'll see I would say a younger woman, like a young mother age, lovely, but has a slightly faded from just, managing a household and having kids and things, and maybe not spending as much time on herself as she used to. wearing a kind of a simple tartan dress. She says, I'm Alice Beale, the lady of the house. I was told that you are here. Are you here? Are you here about Jenny's death?
Seeing her, Alexander will put his hands behind his back, and despite the slight, very slight chattering of teeth, he's going to turn the charm on, and he'll just smile and say, "Yes, Mrs. Beale, we have come to see what assistance we can provide in solving this dreadful mystery."
I think, how are you putting the charm on? Give me the angle there. Is it just your appearance or is it something else?
The appearance giving off that kind of confidence, and he's used to people being disarmed by his attractiveness, so he's going to try and lean on that.
And yet you are chilled to the bone. Your teeth are chattering. Your hands may be trembling. I'm going to let you have this roll, but I'm going to make you roll it at disadvantage because of chilled to the bone. And so
All right.
what that means is you'll roll 3 dice and add the 2 lowest, and then add your presence score.
I don't think I saved the link there.
Oh, I'll grab it. Here we go.
Thanks. Oof. So that will be that'll be 8.
She says, well, it's all been very, very stressful, as you might imagine. Poor Jenny. She was a lovely girl and so good with Roger and the baby. And, well, now, thanks to that ridiculous tabloid story, I haven't been able to find a replacement. Everyone's too scared to come here. Nobody wants to come work at 18 St. James's Street. And so everything is left to me. It's perfectly preposterous. But I have noticed some strange things since you ask. And she says, perhaps you'd like to come upstairs with me.
He'll arch an eyebrow and say, "Why, Mrs. Beale? Of course."
Yes. And perhaps your servant could go down and maybe I don't know. I used to just have the servants talk to the other servants, and now Jenny's dead, and I don't really. This is all just too much to deal with.
I assure you, Willoughby has a great perspective to add to any discussion.
Willoughby, yes, Willoughby. You have a kind face, Willoughby.
My great thanks, lady. I will do what I can to be of assistance downstairs or anywhere in your household to make this trying time more easy for you.
Well, have a look around as you wish. Just please understand that, well, don't judge me. I mean, I'm trying to do the best I can, and I can't get my cook to do any of the cleaning. She just absolutely refuses. And she says, follow me. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name, sir.
Alexander. You may call me Alexander.
Alexander, that's a very, very lovely name. And she will take you upstairs. Where do you go, Willoughby?
That's an excellent question. I hadn't had a chance to see this study properly, so I think that dusting, snooping, and otherwise, Alexander, would you have had an opportunity to explain anything that happened to you, or perhaps my intuition as to your state would have noticed something strange or odd about him, and I might suss out what that could be in this room.
I think either is probably fine. Yeah.
Mm.
I think you would have briefly mentioned the book.
I'll add there's also the dining room on this floor too. So
Then I might do a circuit and see if I can find any other telltale signs of hauntings, or perhaps even the painting that we thought the ghost might have originated from.
yeah, absolutely. I love it. We'll come back to all that. So, Dr. Tagore, you can help Ives out of the drawer, and you can all get away before Pate gets back, or if you're not threatened by Pate, you can wait for Pate to get back. It's up to you. But Ives, if you're cool, that let's just say you're out of the drawer at this point because D.I. Pettigrew's gone.
I'm picturing a little bit of inexplicable dust coming off of your clothing.
Sure, yeah, I shake it off. I didn't actually have time to find the files I was looking for. The insufferable man came in far too soon. Should we try again or take off?
And before I answer that, a sort of an out of character question for you. The spirit that was floating above you, is it with you still? Do I witness it, or is it gone?
It's gone.
All right. I feel like I can stall Pate a bit longer if we feel like we can find some material value, some information here. I'm also a little afraid that I may have put Detective Pettigrew on our case.
Well, we should make sure it's worth it then.
Very true.
Pate will be back in, and he says, "Oh, hello, sir." To you, Ives. I didn't see you come in.
Well, you were very busy, and I have no problem waiting for people on break.
Oh, that's very kind of you. That's a fine attitude to have towards the working class. I think we deserve to have a cigarillo from time to time. No one's harmed by it. Certainly not this lot. Pointing to all the dead bodies. And he says, "Well, what can I help you with, sir?"
I'll give a look to the doctor and say I was looking for a particular file. I'm not sure if these sorts of things are available to the public, or perhaps you need some compensation or some such thing, but we're looking for some information about a dear friend of ours, and the police have been less than forthcoming, you understand.
Oh, Dr. Tagore, do you know anything about this? Is this official or unofficial?
Oh, I'm assisting certainly, but the family wants this kind of kept quiet, if you understand. You know, they're concerned about appearances, as always.
Ives, give me the information move. I think drawn to death would be a penalty in lots of other circumstances, but not in this one because you're in Mortuary with Pate. And so I'm going to let you just roll normal. I think it's going to be with sensitivity, actually.
Right, two.
I think drawn to death is making it sensitivity.
I've got my Coriolis dice, but I picked two new ones because the other ones betrayed me. Oh, yeah. 8.
Nice. You are saying this and having this conversation when your eye is just drawn to a folder that has Ginny Hess written on it. It's just right there. And yeah, what do you do?
I think, can we carry money on our person?
Oh yeah, you always have like enough money for kind of regular normal purchases.
Maybe I say our coin is official and minted, and I'll like flick it to him while reaching for the folder, so it sort of pressures him into giving it to me.
I like it. I'm not going to make you roll anything. That's good. You can have the folder, and I'll give you your clue after you have some time to look through it. Dr. Tagore, what are you up to?
I don't know. Is there anything more we were hoping to get from here? I'll press pay a little further on the outcome of Jenny Hess's body. Where is it at this stage? I'd like to inspect and see if someone truly died of fright in the Victorian era.
I think she's been buried already, and that was a number of weeks ago. So that might be I think that's probably a dead end, at least as far as the body itself goes.
Or did he himself participate in the taking of the body and stuff? Maybe you could provide information.
Good question. Yeah, any unusual whatevers about her condition?
Do an information move for that. Yeah, you can do it with presence since he knows you.
Nine.
He says, well, it's funny you should ask. They say she died of fright. And indeed, the body was in a most unusual state, hair completely white, even though she was in her 20s. And her face twisted in a grimace of terror. But I noticed that she had contusions around her neck, like someone had throttled her. I tried to bring this up with anyone who'd listen, but I think everyone was too caught up in the novelty of her hair having gone white and apparently died of fright to consider that maybe she had been choked.
How old is Pate?
He's probably like just late 20s.
All right. Pate, you have the mind of a physician. Excellent observations.
Yeah, well, yeah. Thank you. And he, I owe you all some complications on this information move roll. And basically, I think what it is I'm going to kind of fast forward this scene. As you are leaving the mortuary, Dr. Pettigrew's on his way back, and he says, I should probably get the file about Miss Hess and her body shouldn't die before I head over to 18 St. James's Street. And he goes past you, and he's now about to discover the file's missing. So that could be a problem. So Alexander, she says, my little girl, Mary Alice, she is asleep right now, but I want you to come into her nursery. And, well, she takes you upstairs to, it's essentially an attic that's been transformed into a nursery. And you go up this little small flight of stairs that have been put there. And this space has been decorated in sort of soft pastel colors. And you can see the baby in her crib asleep. And there's a curtain over the single window that's kind of blocking out the light. But I have a question for you now. How do you know that the ghost is with you right now, Alexander?
I think that the painting's up here.
Nice.
And, yeah, knowing what he's looking for.
How does it make you feel when you see the painting?
I think his expression falters, and he looks at it and knows how dangerous it could be, and is not one to put himself in danger when he can help it.
I'm going to give you a condition, which is going to be on edge. And she says, You can feel it, can't you? There's something going on up here, isn't there?
I believe there is. This portrait, where did it come from?
Well, I don't know. It was here before we moved in. I thought it was nice enough, but not really suitable for the rest of the decor I had planned, and I figured Mary Alice wouldn't care, so I hung it here.
And when exactly did Miss Hess meet her fate again?
Oh, goodness, it's been at least a month now, I suppose. Yes.
Anything strange since then?
Well, I mean, everywhere you go in the house, you feel things, you'll just be sitting in a room and, well, for example, I once heard weeping coming from my bed, and I went to the weeping thinking that perhaps it was Irma or my little boy or someone else. And when I pulled back the curtain on the canopy, there was no one there. But the pillow was soaked with what I can only describe as tears. That's the sort of thing that happens in this house. So that's the sort of thing that we've been experiencing since we moved in. The whole place is, I hate to use this word, it's haunted. I think the stories are right. And at this point, there is a small glass figurine of a tiger in the room. It falls off the shelf it's on and shatters. That's actually a clue that you got for your last roll. A glass figurine of a tiger falls off a shelf and shatters. And it wakes the baby. And she says, I'm very sorry. And she goes to attend to the baby. Willoughby, what are you up to right now?
The cook, I believe her name was Irma, went upstairs to get Mrs. Beale. Would she have come back downstairs at this point? So maybe as I'm moving through and pretending to dust the house and inspect the dining room and things like that, she would have like stumbled in my path and I could maybe ask a few questions.
Oh, sure. Yeah. You'll see her kind of heading back down to the basement, down to the servants' quarters and kitchen. You could stop her before she goes down.
And I do so and offer her a cigarette and say, maybe you might spare a moment. I tidied up a little in here so the missus won't mind. Let's step out back.
I like it. That's enough to get the roll. Roll with presence. And I think the onions aren't even going to affect it because she smells like onions too. So
Presence, that'd be a 10.
nice. So she goes to the back with you. She says, thank you for dusting up a little bit. The lady of the house, she's not very good at the cleaning, and well, I wasn't hired to do the cleaning, was I?
No,
but
of
at least
course
this will get her off my back a little bit. At least she won't complain so loudly. So strange house this, huh?
Yes. Now, the gentleman, my employer, happens to be well versed in things that might tread between this realm and the next.
Oh,
And
I don't know
so-
nothing about no realms.
I understand. The ghost, that usually is in a realm that's not here. I mean, we hope.
Well, there are lots of strange things going on. There have been for a long, long time at 18 St. James's Street. We servants who've lived here for a good long while, who sort of come with the house, if you know what I mean, we've seen it. We know about it. We experience such things.
I did have a nip down to the kitchen. I noticed many bottles and things hung from the ceiling. Is that your work, or has that always been there?
It's always been there. I think the theory is whoever hung them up thought that, well, if there's a ghost, it'll knock into the bottles and it'll make a noise. So we know they're there. What you're supposed to do afterwards, I have no idea. Run, I suppose. Call a
And what is
priest.
this? And what is the scariest story you've been told about what has happened here in the past?
Well, I don't know. Well, there's the business with Ginny is the most serious thing that's ever happened in this house, to be sure. But, well, this is not a story, really, sir. But I have a chance to sort of to see Mr. Beales' ledger from time to time. I myself have to manage the accounts related to food and things. And, well, I was peeking into his ledger and, well, just come take a look. And she leads you back into the house, takes you to, well, she goes upstairs briefly to where the room that he uses for his office, and she comes back down. And she has this ledger. And she says, now look at some of these entries. And she's kind of like showing you some entries. And there's all sorts of normal sorts of things that you might expect to find in household expenses. But there's also entries for things like thought casting and dream whisperer and pig gifts. She's like, what's a pig gift? What's thought casting? I don't know what any of that means. Something strange is going on here. I'm not sure how much longer I can take it.
It's completely understandable. Is Mr. Beale not at home?
No, he'll be back from work later this evening.
I'm going to flip back in the ledger, hopefully while she's distracted at some point, and try to rip out one of the pages, maybe from like 6 months or 2 years prior, so that he might not notice it right away.
Sure, yeah, that's fine.
Mhm.
Oh, it's pig gift. Not pig gift. That was the chat.
When you gotta say it, you gotta say it with pig.
Yeah. Let's.
Do I learn anything else from this conversation, or should we leave it there?
No, I think that's it for there. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, Dr. Tagore and Ives, where do you head now at this point? We've got a little bit more day left before we have to wrap up this phase.
Well, we need to bamboozle Pettigrew, right?
Well, that's true. Or you could just let Pettigrew come find you later. But if he realizes you have the folder now, he might ask for it now, right? But if you at least get away with it for a little bit, you can investigate it before he comes to get it.
So we give him the slip.
He's not even trying to chase you at this point. He's just going back in to talk to Pate, and he will eventually discover that the folder is missing.
Yeah, I'm sure Pate will break like a twig too.
So should I toss out to like try and corner Pettigrew and offer a rationale for why the family wants to keep this under wraps and
to try to keep him from going there, or
yeah.
We could claim that we're like PIs hired by the family or something.
Oh no, I'm going different. I'm going cholera epidemic. I'm going like, don't go to the house.
Okay.
Oh, good. I like that. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Okay, so what do you say?
All right, so I'll find a moment to kind of gesture to Detective Inspector Pettigrew and say, Detective Inspector, can we speak privately for a moment?
I thought we were restricting our conversations to nighttime, Dr. Tagore. Didn't we settle on that?
Generally speaking, but it seems you've caught the scent of a lead, and you want to pursue it as the skilled hound that you
Dr.
are.
Tagore, what's going on? You're acting very strangely about this St. James's Street case.
It's true. What the family is trying to conceal is a cholera outbreak. It was not fright that killed Miss Ness, but illness, and I fear for your safety as well as that of other inspectors. I feel like it's better to keep the house under quarantine for right now.
I love it. This is going to be the day move. So let's read the text of the day move. The day move. Go to the reference tab. It says, when you do something risky or face something you fear, and name what you're afraid will happen if you fail or lose your nerve.
All right. Well, one thing, the tone of my voice might give away that this is a bald-faced lie.
Yeah, I think so. And then roll with an appropriate ability. I think it's composure. So go ahead and roll with composure.
An 11. Haha.
Nice. Very good. You will do as you wish. And but on a 10 plus, you do what you intended, or you hold steady. Describe what it looks like. So you totally get him off your case. He's not going to go bother you at St. James's Street. What do you say? How's this go?
Oh, just, explaining the danger to not just the detective inspector himself, but the entire phalanx of police, the city of London, perhaps the empire itself. Like, this is cholera. This is risky business. We just got through this years ago. Much better to let this family suffer through it in privacy and not create any sensational scandal.
He says, yes, that's a very good point. And who wants to be in a cholera-stricken house anyway, right? We'll let Ginny Hess rest in peace. Sounds good to me, huh?
And at that, I'll gently cough into my own little handkerchief. We should be going.
You have a fine day, Dr. Tagore. And he quickly goes into the mortuary. And he's off your case at this point, so don't have to worry about him. Alexander, well, we'll come back to that moment. Let's go to Alexander. Alexander, what do you do now at this point?
Knowing that the painting is there, and but also knowing that doesn't mean the ghost is tied necessarily to it if it's showing up in the bedroom, I think he'll look at Mrs. Beale and he'll ask, and what does your husband make of all of this?
Oh, my husband. You know why that story ended up in the Illustrated Police News in the first place, right?
Enlighten me.
Because my husband thought that they would be able to, or be willing to pay a little bit of money for the story. Oh, yes. This could have been handled discreetly. We wouldn't have to create a sensation or a stir. I would be able to find a new maid. But no. He wanted to capitalize on poor Jenny's death, and so he sold the story to the Illustrated Police News, and now here you are. Here are the morbid gewgaws, not gewgaws, what's the phrase I'm looking for, like gawkers and ghouls who want to see the place that's haunted, where a ghost scared a poor girl to death. Even my own son has been giving ghost tours of the house to his friends.
He sounds like quite the enterprising young man, but I assure you, my interest lies purely with the living.
Yes, well, I'm finding this all to be quite a lot. I'm going to go. I think perhaps maybe now is the time to wrap things up for today. So I would like to have the peace and tranquility of my home, such as it is, back. And someone has to clean up this mess.
Of course. Thank you for your generous time.
And with that, what do the two of you do?
Willoughby, after hearing Alexander tell some of the details upstairs, would like to make note of the time on the mantelpiece before we leave.
Indeed, it is. It's interesting because some time has passed and you saw the clock moving. You presumably looked at it periodically throughout your time here. But as you're getting ready to leave, it says 9:30 again. Just to deepen that clue a little bit. Let's do some housekeeping on the clues. I'm going to add another entry here, which is the ledger.
Alexander, would we have been planning to meet them back at Hargrave House, or did you have anything out in the city we might need? Should we confer and compare clues?
Would it be a good idea to perhaps track down Mr. Beale at his place of work?
Also potentially a good plan. Although, I guess if the clock was 9 hours off, doing the reverse math, it'd be like 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon now. That feel?
Yeah, it's
right to
probably it's like mid-afternoon at this point. Yeah, probably like 1, 2, somewhere in there.
Well, or catch him on his way from work to the pub.
That could be useful.
I mean, if I lived in this very haunted house, I might need a drink before dealing with the missus.
That sounds like a good plan.
I think on your way out, as you're kind of stepping out into the stoop, you see a woman next door. There's like a hedge in the front garden in front of the townhouse. And she is very obviously peering between 2 hedges, like looking at you both. And she just like, when she realizes you see her, she steps behind the hedge so as not to be seen. A nosy neighbor of some sort.
Alexander.
Oh, go ahead.
He was just going to approach the hedge and say a fine afternoon to you, ma'am.
Oh, yes. Oh, goodness me. You just caught me trimming the rose bushes or something. Oh, I don't. And she kind of like says, oh, you are a very, very handsome man. I hope that's not too forward.
Not for me, ma'am.
Willoughby subtly rolls his eyes. Their eyes.
And are you perhaps selling something door to door? Are you coming over here next?
Would you like me to?
Oh, yes, very much.
I think there are some matters we could discuss, Miss.
Head. Constance Head is my name.
A pleasure. My name is Alexander, and perhaps you know some details about your neighbor that they were unwilling to share with us.
And she sort of like steps out from behind the hedge and kind of to an open space where you can see her. She has, she's wearing a corset that is frankly too tight, streaks of gray in her hair. She's kind of a middle-aged woman. And she says, well, I mean, it's certainly no business of mine what goes on in their household, but what sort of neighbor would I be? What sort of community member would I be if I didn't stay abreast of things that go on around here?
It is always nice to know that someone is looking out for their neighbors.
I think we'll fade to black there and go over to Dr. Tagore and Ives. So what's next? Get one more scene out of this day phase.
We've got the notes on Ginny has to pour through. What else do you think, Fraser?
You could be doing that in the cab, probably.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Like in the cab. Yeah.
I'll just give you the clue then. The clue there is, so this is like notes about the body, notes about the circumstances of the death and things like that. And there is a note that says, bears a remarkable similarity to a death that occurred at that very same address 30 years ago.
Is there any like a reference to the death 30 years ago?
No, just a note that there was one.
Oh, okay,
That one didn't hit the papers though,
I see.
or at least no one's talking about it. It wasn't referenced in the Illustrated Police News. So
Right. Sounds like we might need to go to archives or something like that to find it. Hey, doctor?
Yes, although who wrote these notes?
that's an interesting question. It is unclear who wrote this note.
There's no signature?
No. It's like written in the margins.
All right, and I don't recognize Pate's handwriting or something like that.
No, it wasn't paid.
Just curious if he's holding back from us.
Yeah. I think we're assigning a lot of intelligence to Pate.
Once he serves a master.
Yeah, he ends up being the mastermind. That'd be fun. Should we try to go to some archives to find wherever that would
Yeah,
be
I like
held?
that drama. Wrap the cane on the roof of the cab. Cabby, take us to
It's like the police precinct or something.
yeah, all right. Take
Yeah.
us to the newspaper archives or the police precinct. What do you think?
Sure, yeah, wherever that stuff is held.
I mean, I think it would probably be in some sort of, I mean, I don't know what it would be like back in Victorian times, but maybe there's some sort of like archive where like old police files are kind of kept and the public can go, you know.
Yeah, probably like a big warehouse or something.
Yeah, we can do that. That sounds good. In that case, let's cut back over to Constance Head, but let's take a 5-minute break first. Okay, so just a quick, since we're kind of learning the game as we go, you now have 6 clues. The way the clues work is each of the questions has a complexity. So the question about where is the ghost attached to in the house, that's complexity 4. The question about how do you actually get rid of the ghost, that's complexity 6. Once you have found enough clues to equal half the complexity, you can attempt to answer the question. And the way that die roll works is you roll 2d6 plus the number of clues you work into your theory minus the complexity. So if you have a complexity 4 and you incorporate 5 of the clues, you'd roll the dice with +1. And that is, and the die roll determines whether you're correct or not. And so that is kind of basically how it works. In order to get like a good chance of doing well on the question, you have to get like at least 1 or 2 above the complexity and work all those clues into your answer, or otherwise explain them away somehow. So
what's the consequence of failure? If we fail the dice roll, we just
well, so it depends on the threat. In this case, since there are no like other alternative questions that you can pursue, basically you have to just like try again later. But if you get a 6, if you're wrong, you don't just get it wrong. There's also a keeper reaction, so you might have to like fight the ghost, or the ghost lashes out or something, right? So,
and it's up to us to narratively construct meaning from the clues. Like if I can tell a good story that involves the glass tiger and the ledger and the strangulation marks, then each of those counts.
Yep, absolutely. And you'll all chat and work it out. It could be, typically what happens is you all talk for a little bit, and then like one theory starts to kind of race ahead, and then everyone kind of dives onto that one, and figures out a way to get as many clues in there as possible to get the best die roll. But
So with the yes and principle of improvisational theater, improvisational theater
right, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's yes, and we will solve Victorian mysteries.
Right. So you have enough clues to you have more than enough clues to attempt either of the questions. It's up to you whether you think you have enough to like actually do well on the question or not. But in any case, I think we're going to do just a little bit more in this day phase, and then we're going to go to the next phase. So I'm going to go over to Constance Head, who's the neighbor of the Beales, and she invites you to her sitting room, and she she asks you to sit down, Alexander, not you, Willoughby, because you're a servant. And she says, well, 18 St. James's Street is known to be a, well, how shall we say, troubled address.
For longer than the Beales have lived here.
Yes, the Beales, the poor, sweet, young, stupid Beales. They wouldn't really normally be able to afford a townhouse on St. James's Street, certainly not on Mr. Beales' salary, but they benefit from 18 St. James's Street reputation. It was priced below market value, and so they could afford to move in. Mind you, I'm not trying to be a snob about decidedly a little bit above working class people living in the neighborhood. I think that all people should be able to live anywhere they can afford to. But I do think that, well, Mrs. Beale, she's just, you probably saw the state of her home just now, right? I mean, come on.
It does seem a responsibility she was not prepared for.
Yes. You, on the other hand, I can tell that you have very good help. Your suit is lovely, beautifully pressed. Your beard is perfectly trimmed, sir. And then she looks at you, Willoughby. You're a credit to your master.
Willoughby says nothing. They just bow their head.
So, what do you want to know?
We heard rumor of a man named Jimmy and something terrible that happened to him.
Jimmy. I'm trying to remember as the keeper. Who's Jimmy? Who did we say Jimmy was?
Oh, when Willoughby was talking to the cook, I asked for a story of the most terrible thing that had happened in the house in the past that she had heard of, and then you had made mention of some sort of Jimmy.
I missed that completely. I have no memory of this. Why did
I heard that it's Ginny, not Jimmy.
Oh,
Ginny.
Jenny. I was talking about Jenny.
Ginny.
Yeah.
Oh, my
Jenny.
hearing then,
Yeah.
not your storytelling. Sorry.
Who's Jimmy? I don't know.
Jimmy is the red herring of this entire
Yes, Jenny's redheaded stepbrother.
You can certainly press about Ginny, though, if you want.
I think I'll do that, yes.
Yeah. She'll give you this for free. She's ready to talk. I'm not going to make you roll. She says, well, it was a terrible thing what happened to that poor girl. I mean, they say she died of fright, allegedly from a ghost that is said to walk the halls of 18 St. James's Street, but every building in London has ghosts, so there's nothing too surprising about that. I know that prior to, well, several days before poor Ginny met her untimely fate, there was a bit of a ruckus, some commotion at 18 St. James's Street. I, of course, do my very best to be apprised of the things that go on this street, because it's a responsibility I take very seriously as a member of the community. And I learned that poor Ginny was distressed to find a porcelain vase filled with fresh human blood.
I take it that isn't the Beales' normal decorating scheme.
Well, Alice Beale has dreadful taste, but I don't think even her unfortunate choices would lead to such a thing.
And what did Ginny do with this?
Well, of course, she went straight to Alice, but that was, and there was a whole to do. I mean, the police came to investigate. They couldn't determine what type of blood it was, but no one in the house reported any instant excessive bleeding, and particularly not into a porcelain vase. And so they never were really able to sort out where the blood came from. I think it's just more of the haunting myself, but I think the fact that Ginny found it is important.
Indeed. And would you know, were such dreadful novels on the shelf there. Was Ginny much of a reader?
Oh, I don't think the poor girl could read, no.
And I presume they belong to Mrs. Beale.
Well, I mean, novels are rather, I would say, sort of low entertainment. So this is not entirely surprising.
I'll look at Willoughby and see if Willoughby has any input here.
What are you doing in the meantime, Willoughby?
Casually drinking out of my flask whenever her eyes are pointed in a different direction.
Fair enough.
I cannot stand this woman. I have met many insufferable gossips in my time, and many that love to throw themselves at my employer's feet. And I have no interest in engaging this cow in conversation.
Well, she says, I mean, it's already 2:30, practically dinner time. Do you want to stay for a bite of eat, sir?
As much as I would enjoy the continuation of your company, we unfortunately
do have that
an
appointment,
engagement.
sir. We do have
Yes.
that appointment. Yes, yes.
Oh, well, too bad. Well, do come calling whenever you wish.
Certainly, Mrs. Head or Ms.
Oh, it's Ms. Head.
Very good.
And I think with that, we'll have one given the scene to Ives and Dr. Tagore, and then I think we'll call it a day phase. So you all are headed to like some sort of archive, right?
Indeed.
Let's say there's a police archive where they just store like storage for files and things. I think there will be a clerk there at the front, and he'll say, can I help you?
I'll let the doctor take the lead.
Ooh, thank you, Mr. Turner. Do I know this clerk from prior work with Scotland Yard?
No, I don't think so. No.
All right. And do I know a name I can drop that's like a rank above Detective Inspector Pettigrew, so I can say, I've worked with Chief Inspector so-and-so?
Sure, you can just make up a name. It's fine.
All right. Fraser, you work on a name for this inspector while I work on my storyline here. All right. Clerk, I'm Dr. Tagore here on Scotland Yard business. We need to, ask you to help us reference some archival material from 30 years ago regarding a particular address and a mortality situation there. What's the name of my inspector, Fraser?
How about Shaw?
Yeah, Chief Inspector Shaw has, given this a kind of an urgent priority.
Oh, Shaw. Sure. You're welcome to it. No harm in letting you root through old cases that no one cares about anymore. Can I help you find anything in particular?
Well, looking for documentation on the address of 18 St. James's Street from 30 years prior to now.
He says, well, it might take us a bit, but I can help you with that. Follow me. And he takes you, there's, probably like a space, it's a little bit like a warehouse, maybe not quite that big, but just lots of like tall shelves and boxes and all kinds of stuff like that. He's at it for a little bit, trying to find get you in the neighborhood of what you're looking for, right? And he says, okay, so these boxes here, he kind of like pulls them out and stacks them out. This is after 15, 20 minutes. He says, whatever you're looking for should be in one of these boxes. We will be closed in a couple of hours, so you have until then. And he'll leave you to it.
And thank you so much for your kind assistance. I'll give him a little shilling tip or something.
Yeah, I think I just need like an information move with reason as you kind of search this old material.
Can I help?
There's no help roll, but you can both do it. So.
All right, I've got a 2 on my reason. Fraser, what's yours?
A 1.
You can
You said there's no help.
Yeah, you can do the roll, Dr. Tagore.
Right. Mr. Turner, you might want to help on the reason here. I rolled a 7.
There's no help roll. So a 7 gets you a clue though. So that's not nothing. So you're going through all this material, and initially you're having kind of a hard time finding anything related to a death at 18 St. James's Street. But then I think Mr. Turner's drawn to death condition comes into play. Mr. Turner, you hone in on the files that you need. Better yet, you guide Dr. Tagore's hands to the files. Dr. Tagore, when Mr. Turner takes your hands, how does it make you feel?
I'm glad you asked about this because I have these very clean, unadorned hands and a vice of the Turkish baths, and yet I love to dig my hands into gore. And someone else touching my hands is virtually anathema to my existence, like a living being touching these hands. These hands deal with corpses and an attempt to bring things back to life. So this is almost a transgression, but I say nothing.
Indeed. I'm going to give you a condition, and the condition is going to be I like this. I'm not sure how to editorialize it, but I like this idea of Mr. Turner like touching your hand and this like being a sort of like really profound moment, right? Mr. Turner, you're okay with this, right? I'm imagining you're sort of kind of in a fugue here a little bit, but
Definitely, yeah.
It could manifest as a skin crawl.
I like that. I think I'm going to go with something a little more personal, though. I think I'm going to go with drawn to Mr. Turner's touch.
Alrighty, that sounds good.
Make that a condition, and you otherwise find your file. You go through it for a bit, and the main thing that you learn is this. There was a death at 18 St. James's Street roughly 30 years ago. It was another woman. It was the lady of the house at the time. She was also apparently frightened, to death. Also had strangulation marks around her neck, which is an interesting detail because it's like, well, how did she actually die? And in particular, they only found her body, or they only found her because people from the street thought that the room she was in was on fire, that there was a fire in the room. And so people rushed in to try to help her, only to discover there was no fire in the room. And she was there, dead, in the state they found her in. But it was a reported fire from the street that got the police's attention. And that's your clue. Reports of a fire, but there was no fire. And I think with that, we shall wrap the day phase and go to the dusk phase. Now, the dusk phase is just a short upkeep phase. And we have a couple of major goals here. Oh, you have these in the wrong order on the sheet, Drew. You have the instructions for dusk where it says night. So this is dusk.
Thanks. Sorry.
Okay. And so you have a couple of there's a couple of goals in the dusk phase. Essentially what we imagine the dusk phase to be is it's sort of like a planning phase before you all do what you're going to do at night, right? And you are all back at Hargrave House, and we imagine that you're all sort of sharing what you've learned, commiserating, planning, talking about what you're going to do on the upcoming night, if anything. And that's happening. We don't role play that out, though. We just assume that that's what's taking place. So one of our goals is just to basically find out what you're going to be doing during the night phase. The second thing, though, is we get to learn a little bit about Hargrave House as well. And that's something that we do sort of as a group. We sort of talk about Hargrave House a little bit. And so the first thing for the dusk phase is we resolve any playbook moves that are resolved during the dusk phase. I don't know if you all have any dusk phase moves or not. Let's take a look. Doesn't seem like it. Dr. Tagore can decide to do night work during this phase, but you'll tell us that later. And nope. So there's no moves to resolve during the dusk phase. So we go to the next step, which is I pose a paint the scene question about Hargrave House. And so let me, I don't have my notes pulled up naturally. Let me go find that.
I have a game question for you too, whenever you're ready for it.
Go for it. I can take the question while I'm looking for this document.
You were saying Dr. Takor has this option of night work. And if I read it, literally it says, when not engaged in the hunt with your colleagues at Hargrave House, you spend your nights, blah, blah, blah.
Mm.
It kind of feels like I'm engaged in the hunt right now. So with that.
Well, no, during the night, you can choose during the night phase to not be. So you can
I
choose,
could kind of bow out.
You bow out basically, yeah. And it's you're not doing nothing during that time as a player, but you're just, your character is not actively working on a threat. You are helping Scotland Yard with their work.
Okay, thank you.
Let me go find the play structure. There we go. So let's talk about Hargrave House. I think that this particular drinks meeting that you're having at Hargrave House before the night, as you're sort of sharing all the information you've learned, this is going to be in the trophy room of Hargrave House. And my question is this: there were hunters living in Hargrave House before you. We've talked about that. There are trophies from their encounters with the supernatural in the trophy room. Just go around the table and describe one. Some trophy of previous hunters' supernatural encounters. Previous residents of Hargrave House. Yeah, Willoughby, go for it.
I think I have one. I like the idea that there is some sort of eldritch horror tentacles mounted on a plaque, but they have kind of a jackalope vibe where you're not quite sure, as octopus tentacles, or was that really coming out of a black void? You know, but just a little bit iffy.
Some mounted tentacles. I love it. What's to go next?
I've got a question because I've got an idea, but I'm looking on our safety tab. I don't think we checked any of the lines and veils. Is that...
Oh, I think the only thing, I mean, I just remember them, but I think the only thing sort of, maybe spiders was the veil, I think. That's like a kind of physical thing.
And one other one that...
Yeah, torture. And violence towards small children and animals.
And were those veiled or lined? That's what I don't know.
Those all veiled. I think the only line was sexual violence.
I have an idea.
Go for it.
I think there's a very tall man, like 6'1", who is got like I would say Victorian garb on, but he's in completely gold.
The statue of a gold man. I like it.
Think under a glass kind of protective dome, there is a woman's hand in a like a come hither kind of position.
Nice.
Is that looking fresh, mummified? What's the condition?
It looks oddly fresh.
Dr. Tagore.
There is the skull of an infant, and you know how sharks have those rows of teeth upon teeth upon teeth. This skull has layers of teeth that go far beyond what a normal human should have. So it looks as though someone interceded and saved society by catching something very young.
Nice. I love it. It's great. Yeah, that's great. So now you all get a chance to say what you're going to be doing during the upcoming night phase. You each get to speak once, and then after everyone has spoken, you each get to make one revision based off what everyone else said. but there's no discussion. You just say what you're going to do. And I'm going to go in the order of the sheet. So let's start with Willoughby.
I think that I would continue my day drinking a little bit into the evening and get a little bit inspired and decide to go out and see what other trouble I can stir up in regards to other people who have ghost stories about this house, or what's been in the news, or who saw what on the street, and kind of just go on a bar hopping tour in order to just suss everyone out.
Yeah, I like that. It's good. Dr. Tagore, what are you going to do tonight?
I feel like I need another minute to think on this. Give me a second.
We can come back to you. Alexander, Mr. Gennadios.
I think he is going to hang around St. James Street. Think
Okay,
he-
sounds similar to what Willoughby's doing. Yeah, which is fine. Mr. Turner.
I want to try to draw the entity out with beacon in the dark, probably.
Nice, love that. And so, Dr. Tagore, are you going to do night work, or are you going to do the investigation?
I'm thinking investigation, and I'm trying to picture something involving like gathering a few additional clocks and a couple of hourglasses to try and suss out what's really going on with the time here.
To run some do some experiments.
Some temporal experiments.
I love it. It's good. Great. I'm very into that. So let's everybody gets a chance to make one revision. If after you've heard everyone else's, if you want to change what you're doing, you can say so now.
Only an expansion on what I'm doing. All of that happens, and I do realize somewhere in my cups, one of my most prized possessions is a golden pocket watch that I wear right here around my neck. And I realized I saw all of those clocks were off, and I didn't look at my own timepiece. So I kind of drunkenly stumble towards St. James Place Street and end up probably bumping into my employer.
Indeed. Good. So any other revisions? Everybody good? Okay.
Would Mr. Turner be in the St. James Street vicinity?
Not necessarily, no. Mr. Turner's move, he's just walking the streets of London, his consciousness spreading across the city like a web. So not necessarily at St. James Street.
Yeah, if you want to do something together, I suppose I could do the rites of salt or something, like a ritual with you or something.
Yeah, but the beacon in the dark move is it's presumed you're alone when you do it. So if you want to do that,
Yeah.
Mr. Turner's alone. Yeah.
So that's fine then. I'll stick skulking around.
Sounds good. Now, I should tell you that the way the night phase works is you all say what you're going to do, but I get to decide what you actually do. It is driven entirely by the keeper. Yeah, Brian.
Just another game question here. It looks like the vessel, Ives's night move is specifically for night. Like this cannot happen during day. It can't happen during dusk. Is that true?
Let's read it. Let's see. Let's see here.
It says when you walk the streets of London at night, your consciousness.
So tonight. Yeah. Good. And then the last thing we have to do for the dusk phase, well, we can resolve any Janus Mask prompts, but I think we don't have to because we only had one, and that was Ives, and you already did it. And then the last thing is I introduce what's called the Unscene. This is a brand new thing to know. It's very unusual in role-playing games, so just stick with me here for a moment. The night phase is coming up. One of our main objectives, of course, is to continue the investigation. And if you, depending on where you're at in the investigation, maybe even actively trying to stop the threat, right? But equally important during the night phase is we want to learn a little bit more about our version of London. And so we take some time to explore a part of London, right? And we do that with what's called the Unscene. And this is a scene that's taking place on the same night that you're all doing whatever you're doing, but it has no connection whatsoever to what you're doing. It is literally something happening somewhere else in the city. The only thing that connects them is what's called an echo in the night, or an echo in the dark. What did I end up calling it at the end? I don't remember. It's on the Dawn questions list. Echo in the night. An echo in the night is when something from this other scene, this unseen, this London scene, when something from it is reminiscent of something happening in your hunter scenes. So a color, a visual, a motif, a theme, just something that kind of echoes that a little bit. And vice versa. When something in your hunt scenes is reminiscent or reflective or referential to something that happens in the unseen, that's called an echo in the night. These are things that eventually, as you master the game, you'll just do naturally. You won't even think about it. Initially, you'll probably be thinking about it and being very intentional about it, but that's okay. But the way that we sort of like do this, and we're going to be very deliberate here, is I'm going to present the unseen first. And then I will tell you all that while we're doing the night phase, we will be bouncing back and forth between the two. We'll be doing your hunters, we'll be doing the unseen, back and forth. It's like a movie. Like imagine a movie like cross-cutting back to like sort of background scenes, right? Now, I have to go find an unseen, so give me a moment. I'm not ready for anything today. This is the last little bit of the game that I haven't like quite finalized yet. It's one of the last things I'm working on. But in any case, this unseen is going to be called let's keep it simple-ish. The prison hulk at Woolwich, or Woolwich. I'll type that for you. Let me read it to you. Moored near the industrial town of Woolwich are a number of hollowed-out old warships that serve as temporary prisons for convicts set to be transferred to Australia and other penal colonies. One of these prison hulks is the HMS Bellerophon, now called the HMS Captivity. A too young cook is walking above and below deck, passing out the evening's portion of hard biscuits and pea soup. So while you're all doing your hunt, we're going to be watching this young cook on this prison ship. We'll discuss what that means in a moment. And so we are getting ready to do the night phase. I will tell you that the night phase is fast. That long, roughly 2 hours that we just spent on the day phase, it's only a fraction of that at the night phase. It's like basically one scene and we chop it up into a lot of little tiny scenes, right? We bounce back and forth. It's very, very fast. It's much more dangerous. Everything is like way more dangerous at night than it is in the day. And so the way that the day phase is kind of like a little bit more leisurely, this is much more fast paced. And the way that the day phase is kind of focused on what you all want to do, the night phase is very much focused on what I want to do. And yes, Brian.
Speaking of that, it looks like in the character keeper, you can switch from day to night phase, and that changes some aspects of our characters.
It shouldn't, but
oh, am I wrong? Okay.
Right now, it just changes the banner at the top to say what phase it is.
Oh, it doesn't actually change our abilities.
Yeah,
Right.
Got it. Okay, sorry about that. Misunderstood.
So We're going to do the prison hulk at Woolwich, and we're going to do maybe the things that you want to do tonight. And let's start with the prison hulk at Woolwich, though, as we kick off the night phase. First thing is to paint the scene for everyone. How do we know the captivity, which is the ship, is a nightmare of filth and desperation? Think about it, say what you think, and then we'll dive into our hunter scenes.
Even from the outside, there's like coils of deep rust that run along the length of it that go slinking in.
I actually want to go an unsanitary route in which between the boards on the hull, you can actually see the remains of the human waste that has just been constantly squished from end to end and now has started to permeate the wood of the ship itself.
Nice.
Anyone passing by can hear the moans and the cries for help and better conditions from within.
Two things. Pea soup is a euphemism. The greenish texture comes from grubs and weevils that are pulverized. And on some ships in rough seas, they'll string up some extra netting around the deck to make sure no one falls overboard. Even though this ship is at rest in a harbor, those nets are up and there are little sharp barbs of wire jammed through all those nets.
Great. So we're going to leave the captivity. Remember these details as we dive into our hunter scenes. Mr. Turner, you're walking alone at night, walking along the streets of London. What kind of neighborhood are you starting your walk in?
Oh, I think probably well-to-do, going down into it like a descent.
How do you know you're getting to the descent?
Oh, perhaps there's like not even well-maintained roads or roads at all.
Just like dirt paths and stuff, or poorly maintained cobblestones, to say. I like it. Let's read your move. It says, when you walk the streets of London at night, your consciousness spreading across the city like a vast spider web. Roll with sensitivity. Go ahead and do that roll.
Seven.
Nice. On a hit, you are immediately confronted by a threat or a personified danger related to the threat. We'll talk about that if we need to. You may ask them 2 questions from the list below. They will not answer directly, but rather in the form of a clue. On a 10 plus, the threat or danger will depart as soon as the question is answered. But you didn't get a 10 plus, so. But good, before whatever's drawn to your beacon, before it shows up, I would like to know, what does this feel like to you as you sort of do this? Like, how do you experience it? How do you experience the city differently?
I think there is like an accenting of where the light is. So instead of it getting darker, it's almost like a migraine of light. Like I'm looking for motes of light and then I head that way. And then it's like pressing on that forefront of your brain when you're looking at something like that.
Yeah, I like it. It's great. Dr. Tagore, you have collected hourglasses, clocks, pocket watches, and things like that. And I assume you were going to do this in the vicinity of 18 St. James's Street, right?
Yes.
Okay. If you're okay with it, I'm just going to let you be right in the middle of 18 St. James's Street.
Oh, interior? Like
Oh, yeah.
inside?
Sure.
All right, sure.
The scene is you and Mr. Beale. Mr. Beale is a Harold Beale, patchy beard, always fiddling, very worried about the cost of things. He's there with you in his study, and he says, "My goodness, that's an awful lot of timepieces. That must have cost you a pretty penny."
Collection accrued over ages. Some of them borrowed from colleagues.
So you're a doctor, yes?
Yes, indeed.
That's terrific. That's terrific. Good money in the medical field.
Oh, one doesn't go into this profession for money. There's far more to learn at the wheel of science and creation. There's such a chance to bring life and vitality to all beings in this entire stratosphere.
How interesting. He says, well, do let me know if I can be of any service to you. This is
Get him imagine the power to bring the dead back to life.
Will you say that to him?
I say that to him. I want to see how he responds.
This is, what a capital endeavor. And he, this is, you do let me know if you need anything, Dr. Tagore. And he just goes back downstairs. Willoughby, tell me about the bar that you've landed in, the pub. What's it like?
I think I'm probably 2 bars into it at this point. Much like Mr. Turner, I probably would start on the high end of town and slowly make my way downward. The difference being, of course, that I'd be sober enough to have good manners early on in the evening. And then as the evening wore on, I wouldn't have to, well, I could punch somebody for calling me a man or a woman just because, and no one would say anything of it.
Indeed. Good, I love it. And what's your approach here? How are you trying to get this information?
I feel like it would be a bartender network more than anything else. Willoughby would be an astute study of character, even in a tipsy, intoxicated state, constantly trying to figure out what's that over there? Oh, does she really like him, or is he trying to get her? Those sorts of observations. But it would be the bartenders of, so what's been the good gossip lately? That sort of what rumor mongering has been happening, because they will know.
I like it, good. And Alexander, Mr. Gennadius, your approach was, where are you starting?
I think start standing across the street, just watching the house.
Anything stick out?
I'm looking for anything from that upstairs window that might indicate the painting is active, or any screams from within, maybe signs of a fire.
Yeah, very good. I love it. Let's go back to the captivity. The HMS Captivity. Go ahead, Sarah, what were you saying?
I didn't catch the young cook's name. Is it?
Oh, the captivity doesn't have one. Yeah,
doesn't have one. That makes sense.
Back at the HMS Captivity, this is going to be for Drew, and here I address you as players. Drew, narrate a scene in which we see the convicts at leisure. How do they entertain themselves? How do they maintain their connection to God and society, if at all? And I'll remind you, you can get echoes in the night in the reverse. You can incorporate things from the hunter scenes into this moment if you wish.
On the deck of the ship, there's a kind of makeshift prison yard, and but they don't get much time out during the day. It's often at night when people aren't around to see, and there are people doing kind of Victorian exercises, I guess, no racks or anything, but and there are people, yep, just socializing, and some just standing at the edge in front of those nets, just staring out at the city. And I think somebody is using a makeshift paintbrush made of maybe another inmate's hair to do a rough painting on a piece of old clothing.
Mr. Turner, you are doing Beacon in the Dark, Beacon in the Night. And you've done this before. I think whenever you're about to draw something to you, whenever something responds to your psychic energy, it feels like a whoosh as your concentration focuses very rapidly on one area. And you see, stepping out of the shadows, a group of people. They are wearing what appears to be servant's livery, but burned. And their arms and faces are, the flesh is burned, charred. And as they step out of the shadows, you can even see embers floating off of their bodies. And they say in unison, "We are the servants of 18 St. James's Street." How do you feel?
I think there's a coldness in me, but there's like a heat externalized from them that's like pouring on me. So I think like the hackles of my arm are raised, but I'm also sweating a little bit on my face.
Dr. Tagore, what's your first step here in your investigation, your experiment?
Is it safe to assume that I've had a chance to confer with Alexander and Willoughby and know a little bit about that room that was so cold and the
Yes, it's assumed during the dusk phase you share everything that your characters know. So.
Right. So my hope was to set up timepieces in multiple rooms around the house, including an hourglass as my like sort of final trigger mechanism, like set up the hourglass and then go to that room and try and consult that salacious tone one more time and see if I can cause the clocks to maladjust.
This is a great plan. Do an information move with reason.
Actually roll a 14, 12 plus 2.
Oh, sorry.
You are muted, Jason.
12 plus on the information move is very, very fun because that's the introduction of the mastermind. And you get your first mastermind clue anyway. We'll talk about that in a moment. But I love your setup here in the experiment, so we're going to leave it there for now. Willoughby, give me an information move with presence. Just this is going to stand in for like all the barmen, so, and barwomen.
And they're all men.
Barmaids and barmen. Yeah.
No, Willoughby has a lot of baggage when it comes to, oh, men are here or women are here. So that was more in character than I intended it to be. That's a 10. And sorry, reason or presence? 10.
Nice. You get your clue. Let me take a look at my clue list.
Mm-hmm. I'm asking the bartender if anybody's come in grotesquely burned recently, or where on earth did you get that impressive timepiece?
Right, yeah.
Somebody decide to discard of all of their watches at the end of, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I love it. He says, yeah, I know something about that haunted place in St. James's Street. I have a bit of a enthusiasm for ghostly tales, and I've I've been around there, just keeping an eye on the place. And the little boy, I can't remember his name, but we'll just say he's very precocious. That's the word we'll use, precocious. He's more than willing to tell you anything you want to know. He's very, very excited about living in a haunted house. But I heard something once there. I could swear it was the lady of the house and the man of the house, and they were arguing. I don't know what they were arguing about, sounded like money. But then, as the argument continued, they just switched into a different language. A language I never recognized. It wasn't Spanish, wasn't French, wasn't any of the more common languages you hear around London. It was something altogether bizarre and alien. And they were just arguing in this language as if nothing had changed. And then they just switched back to English. It was incredibly unusual.
That is amazing. Astounding. How could you possibly have ever invented such a story? You really are a wonder to your profession, sir. And I tip well. Like
Very
too
good.
well. Like 3 drinks too many, too well.
Oh yeah, that's good. Alexander, give me a information move with reason as you just sort of are just looking at the place, which is not a bad move, especially at night.
I think I did that wrong.
Sometimes it's easier just to clear the dice and
So it's a 7 minus 1, so 6.
very good. You are looking in the windows. You said you were really focused on the painting. I think you can see the painting from where you're at. It's near it's near the one window in Mary Alice's nursery that's not or it's not currently covered. You can make out the painting, but only because you know it's there. You probably wouldn't stand out as anything if you didn't know it was there. And while you are there looking, you feel fingers tightening around your neck. It's gentle at first, but then it gets stronger and tighter. And I think we'll take a quick 5-minute break. We'll come back, resolve that. Let's go to the captivity. This is for Brian. Narrate a scene in which we see a convict being punished by a ship's officer. What did the convict do? How is the punishment being carried out?
I want to make sure I'm clear. The ship is still in harbor, or is this a ship in transport right now?
It's in harbor, yeah. Like it's just there. It's like a prison, but it's a boat.
Got it.
It's before
But
they get shipped to Australia.
Okay, so they are going to be shipped away. All right. So it seems, yeah, punishment for literally attempting to escape, leaping overboard, trying to swim to shore, is this convict's crime that they're not going to Australia or wherever the ship is bound, and attempted to swim themselves to safety. The the punishment, you would expect the cat o' nine tails, but instead, no, this person was swimming in woolen garments that are soaked with cold seawater. And instead, what they do for punishment is they strap them in tightly and leave them wearing this sodden salt garment that is achingly cold and then turning into crusty salt, which then leads to sores and blisters on the skin.
Mr. Turner, you get to pose questions to the servants of 18 St. James's Street, these burned up apparitions.
So I can pose a question to them.
Yeah, it looks like you have some lists. You have a list there. Where's your lair? How can I get you to what? What do you intend to do? What do you want from blank? What frightens you?
2 questions. How can I get you to reveal if she actually died of fright, and what frightens them?
And I will answer in the form of clues. So the first question was, how can you get them to reveal whether or not she actually died of fright, right? It's good.
Yeah.
And I think let me take a look at my clues. You don't, they just sort of like reach out their charred hands and the embers like float from their fingertips and the embers touch your forehead and you have a vision. It's a vision of it's 2 unknown people from a different era. You don't actually, it almost looks like Elizabethan or like Tudor costume. And you see these 2 people. You can't tell exactly where they're at in the city, but you kind of recognize what would be St. James's Street today. It seems there's something vaguely familiar about it. And you just see both of them. They are having some kind of argument. You can't tell about what. And then one of them begins strangling the other. And that's it. That's the vision you get. That's a clue as well. And the second question was,
What frightens them?
oh, very good. You have a vision of the servants' quarters on fire, blazing, roaring fire, and people screaming as they burn to death. And that's your other clue.
I see. Is it
That's it.
possible? Okay.
Dr. Tagore, you got a great roll in your information move. And I'm going to tell you that you're going to get a clue And the clue is this. You met the little boy, Roger. Kind of a foul-mouthed brat, if I'm being honest. He's been bugging you all damn night. And at a certain point, you turn one of the clocks. I think you turn all the clocks to 9:30 just to see what happens, right? And Roger comes into the room and he's noticeably older. How do you know that?
Is it okay if I leave him the same height?
Of course.
All right. He has lost that youthful buoyance. He is shuffle stepping in as though his entire body is in pain from just arthritis, and his fingers are warped in that kind of curvilinear way. And his lips have curled into that kind of like that sort of pucker-mouthed mutter, like his teeth are gone.
That's horrifying. That's a clue as well. Roger is noticeably older. You look out the window, Dr. Tagore, of the room that you're in, out onto the street. You see Alexander. You also see a very large, very handsome carriage. It would have been called a growler back then. This large, fancy growler has come to a stop nearby, not directly in front of 18 St. James's Street, but pretty close. Willoughby, what do you do after you are done shaking down the barman? He'll say, "Can I interest you in anything from the menu? Are you hungry at this late hour?"
I begin to say, yes, let me see, and then have one of those only inebriated inspirations in which I'm like, oh, the watch. And I run towards, irresponsibly so, towards St. James Place.
Alexander, you see this fancy carriage pulling up nearby, coming to a stop on the street there, and you feel fingers tightening around your neck. What do you do right now?
I can still like breathe and
Yes,
speak.
it's not choking you yet, but you can feel it like getting very assertively around your neck.
Say, friend, better spirits than you have tried.
I want you to do the night move since you're trying to like maintain your composure here or keep it cool. Let's go to the night move and let's read the text of the night move. When you do something risky or face something you fear, name what you're afraid will happen if you lose your nerve. What will happen here?
I'm not sure he's actually afraid of death, but I think he's afraid of being so exposed. If something happened that should kill him and he doesn't die, that could be very bad for his future. So he's
I'm going to
afraid
say
of,
it's worse than that. You are very much vulnerable to dying because this is a supernatural attack. And although I think as a general matter, you are capable of being destroyed physically. You just don't age, right? Death is on the table. You can walk away from the scene and not have to do this roll, or you can do the roll.
let's roll.
Roll
So
it with
composure.
it's always sensitivity when it's something supernatural. So yeah.
That's 8.
8, you said?
8. Yep.
Good. I'm going to give you the condition sore neck as the thing continues to to clamp down. But I will tell you that as you're like kind of feeling this happening, you can see that someone is getting ready to step out of the carriage that just pulled up. We'll talk about them in a moment. Our last visit to the captivity is for Sarah. Narrate a scene in which we see a convict finding comfort and companionship within the bulkheads of the captivity. And here I'll remind you, anything you can work in from the hunter scenes into the visuals here is good.
I think after quite a while, maybe further into the night after that prisoner had been strapped up as punishment, that the young chef might come from below deck and kind of hustle and dart from mast to edge of the ship back to mast again to try and avoid any of the city, any fire burning light that still might be smoldering at this early hour. And he would spend 10 or 15 minutes slowly feeding the man some of what could only be described as pea soup.
Mr. Turner, it's convenient when the spirits and other dark things that are drawn to you leave after you're done answering their questions. These have not left. They are continuing to walk close toward you, their arms outstretched. What do you do?
I imagine there's like whatchamacallit, those sturdy lamp posts. Is this a time when it would be sodium in?
There would have been gas lamps, but also candle lit lamps as well. There'd been a mix in the city.
Okay.
And even a little bit of electricity in certain places.
Okay. Basically, what I want to do is start a fire because I know they're afraid of them.
Ah, good. That's definitely a night move. What are you afraid will happen if you fail or if you mess this up?
I'm afraid that probably what I'm most afraid of is being like possessed by one of them.
Yeah, I think that's probably definitely something to be worried about. I think it's worse than that. They will, because you're drawn to death, especially, I think they want to take you to their fiery limbo with them. Let's roll with sensitivity.
Is it possible when they draw near to the lamppost, coils of rust go up because there was like rivulets of rain or something too?
Sure, yeah. If you want to focus on that, I like that. Yeah, I'm into it. Roll sensitivity.
All righty, Coriolis dice, don't fail me now. 9, 11.
Nice. Since this is the your last bit in the night phase, just go ahead and describe your escape.
So yeah, we see the coils of rust, and then I take maybe like a rock or something and smash the top of the lamp so that it flares quite brilliantly, and they sort of back off a little bit, and then I just book it. I run, flee with all my might.
Very good. Dr. Tagore, you look out the window and you see a woman stepping out of the carriage. She is very tall, stately even, a black woman with salt and pepper hair. wearing a beautiful sort of blue, kind of blue taffeta gown. And importantly, you notice around her neck, she has a choker with a large sapphire on it. And the sapphire is glimmering in the street lamp light. Alexander, you see her as well. She's also staring at 18 St. James's Street. And she turns to you and she says, "Are you having a good evening?"
An interesting one for sure. Made all the
Yeah.
more interesting for your arrival.
Oh, what a charmer you are. And she says to her driver, she takes one last look at 18 St. James's Street, gives you a smile, and says to her driver, "I think I've seen everything I need to see." And she gets back in the carriage and they drive off. Willoughby, you're going to be wrapping up our night phase here. Just give us a little bit of a, just tell us how you kind of end your night here. What do you spend the rest of the night doing?
Well, I would be hoping to find St. James's Street. And I know the number is 18, but I've been saying St. James's Place all evening, so I might get lost trying to find where my employer and everybody else might be doing the investigation, trying to find St. James's Place instead of street.
Indeed, indeed. And we shall end the night phase there.
Confirm a clue or two when we have a chance.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and write them down. We're our upkeep. We're going to an upkeep phase, so we can just do that now.
Great.
Okay, so we did get some clues here. The growling carriage, that is a mastermind clue. That's going right over here. Boop. And Roger has noticeably aged. Servants' quarters on fire. Language shift, that was a big one. There was another clue about the sort of like Tudor era argument between two people, and with one of them strangling the other. That was a clue.
Certainly presents a theme.
Mhm.
I think I have that down as Mr. Turner's vision of a couple arguing, but was that a different argument?
No, that's a different argument. That was but the language shift argument, that was a story the barman told about
Yes.
the Beales, about Mr. and Mrs. Beale.
Because he had been eavesdropping and or
Mhm.
lurking one night.
Yeah. And then so that was a different thing. I think that was everything though.
Alexander felt hands on his throat. Was that a clue or not?
That was not a clue. That was just an unfortunate thing happening to Alexander. So let me scan my list, make sure we got everything. You got the vision of people from different era, right? Roger's older, you got that one.
I'm not seeing the vision of people from a different era. Clue list.
Well, that was
The
Mr. Turner's vision.
Of the couple
The s-
arguing.
The
Yeah.
strangling,
Yeah.
the hands on
that's
the
the
other
one from
throat
Tudor.
is Tudor era.
Mhm.
Mr. Vision's Tudor vision,
Mhm.
essentially.
I'll put a note there. The dawn phase. The dawn phase is a very short upkeep phase that we do right before we head into the longer day phase again. And let's Let's talk about it. First thing we would do is we would collect rewards if a threat was resolved, but we have not resolved a threat yet. The next thing we do is answer dawn questions. So on your character keeper, you have a section there that is called dawn questions. We're going to go person by person, and we are going to just go through and see how you did on those things. So the first three are the same for every character. Did the hunters answer a question? These should be capital Q question. That's a game term. Did the hunters resolve a threat? And did you experience an echo in the night? Well, you have not answered a question or resolved a threat yet, so nobody's getting those two. However, Willoughby, did you experience an echo in the night? Meaning, did something you narrated or something that happened to Willoughby, did that echo from the HMS captivity scene that you can recall?
It doesn't seem to be the case, no, but I think we'll get better at that as time goes on.
Yeah, it's a tricky part of the game to master in the beginning, but very worth it when you do.
Although I would like to say that perhaps in the dusk phase, I would have intensely stressed that it was in fact Alexander who discovered that the clocks were off and the time had been so drastic. Like I had been coming
you can do that one. Yeah,
upstairs
you could
and I was
retcon that,
adjusting
yeah.
my timepiece, and he's so thoughtfully observant. He knows I don't handle that in public. Like the whole
Oh, I love it.
that
That's
I would
good.
like to do.
Yeah, I'll definitely give you that, and you can definitely take that. And so what you'll do is you'll just mark right below where it says XP. You'll mark a box there. And did you engage in a petty reprisal of someone who angered your employer?
No, as terribly distressing as I found that woman's company, I just decided to let it go.
It felt like I like it actually. I think it was in the spirit of the question, because like you were
I was being very petty.
You were being
about
petty,
it.
yeah. You were being very petty about it. So you can have that one. So mark another XP. Okay, Dr. Tagore, did you experience an echo in the night?
Oh, tell me if this is stretching beyond the game's parameters. A part of me is thinking Roger aging. I can see salt blisters showing up on his skin. But
oh, I like that as a retcon. Yeah, it's good. Like the blisters. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, let's go for it. Yeah. That's the kind of thing to pay attention to next time, though, to really make sure you get it in there. So,
right.
But go ahead and take the XP. Did you put your hands in a pile of guts and love every moment of it? Not yet.
Sadly, no. I'm looking forward to my opportunity to do that, though.
Did you have a conversation with the child while no one was looking? That didn't happen either. You didn't really have any chances to kind of get in there with the child yet. Let's go to the undeniable. Did you experience an echo in the night? I know what you were going for with the painting thing, where I could tell.
That was what I was going for.
Yeah, I picked up on it. You can take that XP. And then, did you express a clear preference for the beautiful over the mundane?
The only thing I could think of is the kind of more active pursuit of the mysterious woman with the sapphire necklace over his usual interactions, but I don't think so.
Yeah, it feels like a bit of a stretch. Did you secretly show a vulnerable side to someone?
I did not.
Okay. And the vessel, Mr. Turner, did you experience an echo in that? Yes, you did. Take an XP. Did you have a face-to-face encounter with the dark entity? Yes, you did. Mark an XP, several of them. Did you counsel someone using your supernatural affinities? I don't think you did that. And the next part of the dawn phase. Yeah. Okay, so next thing, mark new elective dawn questions. So those the dawn questions that you can choose, you can mark new ones if you wish, or you can keep them the same if you want to try to aim for those. Again, it's up to you though, but go ahead and do that now. Now that you have a kind of a sense of how the game goes, you can kind of definitely pick things that you think you can play toward. So.
Drew, just asking as a player here and not as well versed in Google Sheets as you are with the character keeper, is there a way that the keeper can like ping the dawn questions zone or something like that? Is that doable?
Like to mark them as being.
Yeah, like look here on the character keeper now.
Oh, no.
All right, didn't think so. I just figured I'd ask.
Or at least not to my knowledge.
And once you get your questions picked, we shall keep going.
I'm
Next.
good.
Quick question: do we only choose one dawn question?
No, the two at the bottom, you always can change those during the dawn phase if you want, or keep them the same. There's a drop down. So.
Sorry, I'm still feeling fuzzy. Am I choosing one dawn question out of the 5, or?
So the first 3 are always the same. Did the hunters
Oh.
answer a question? Did the hunters resolve a threat? Those are always the same. And then you have 2 with drop downs, and you can just like pick.
Got it. I misunderstood the checkbox. I thought I had to check it in advance to say
no.
I'm attempting to do this in this phase.
Yeah. And then the last thing to do, I think it's the last thing for the reference sheet. Resolve any playbook or custom moves that are resolved during the dawn phase. I don't think we have any. And then resolve any Janus Mask prompts that remain unresolved. We don't have any of those either. And so that leads us directly into the next day phase. Now, at the beginning of a brand new day phase, I present a new threat because London is not static. While you're all busy with ghosts, other things are going on in the city, and they are going to come calling right now. So let me pull that up real fast. Here we are. The Daily Telegraph has a story about a washerwoman named Clara Yarborough. She was found dead in a hallway of her tenement house in Whitechapel. Her face had been carefully removed. This is the 3rd such crime this month. The other 2 victims, Edward Clive and Dolly Merriweather, also lived in Whitechapel. People are already saying it's old Sally No-Face who's doing it. But Sally No-Face is just a legend. Children have been singing her song in the streets for as long as anyone can remember. Poor old Sally, trapped in a fire, her beauty gone without a trace. If you're lovely with fate most dire, she'll come and take your lovely face. Dr. Tagore, you have a history with the deceased Clara Yarborough. What is it?
Say that one more time, I'm sorry.
You have a deceased with the woman who was found dead with her face removed, Clara Yarborough. What is that history?
Just missed one word. I have a deceased with?
You have a, what did I say?
Oh, you said you have a deceased.
You have a history with the
have a
deceased. You have a history with the deceased.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Sorry. You have a history with the deceased.
All right. Do we know anything around inventing Clara Yarborough on the spot here?
She's a washerwoman. That's all you know about her. So far.
Okay. Ooh. I'm leaping ahead a little bit to something in the Janus Mask. I'm going to keep it veiled for now. She cleansed some bed sheets that I desperately needed cleansed that no one else in my household could know about.
Emergency bed sheet cleaning. It's always a good sign. Very good, very good. So we know a few things about this case. Obviously, Clara Yarborough. All the victims were in Whitechapel, which is in East London, rough neighborhood in East London. East London's rough in general, and Whitechapel particularly so. Clara Yarborough. We had the other victim is Edward Clive, and then Dolly Merriweather. Type those here for you. The third time this happened this month. 3 people already this month have been found dead with their faces removed. And everybody is talking about old Sally No Face, this urban legend. Who knows if there's any truth to that or not. But in any case, that is where we are at. When we resume next week, we'll do the day phase. You all will have the option of investigating either of these 2 things, although you have quite a lot of clues for 18 St. James's Street at this point. You can try to answer some questions about 18 St. James's Street. You may want to try to get rid of some of your conditions because you are racking up conditions. There's a particular way we do that as well. So called the vulnerable move, which is basically you have kind of an intimate moment with another character, and that's how you clear your conditions. And so with all of that said, I think we shall wrap and do stars and wishes. So yeah, stars are things you enjoyed about the session, about the game, about the mysteries, about moments or scenes or anything, and characters. And wishes are things you hope to see next time.
Well, I liked all of it pretty much. I think we have a very good sense of all of the characters. I really liked the dark entities. I really liked the Unseen, which used to be the Overseen.
It was called the Overseen previously. Now it's called the Unseen.
Yeah.
It's a play on the words
totally-
unseen and unseen. Yeah, like SCENE.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that and then got very excited. I always really like doing that because it just feels very cinematic, and it's how my brain works all the time anyway. It'd be like in a TV show when good editing happens, there's like a visual motif and it cuts to a similar visual motif, that kind of thing. Wish. I have ideas about the ghosts. I don't know. I guess I wish to do a dark ritual in that house and fuck with those ghosts. And in general, to have at least another scene with another character other than the doctor.
Good. Who wants to go next? Thank you.
I would agree that the Unseen has a lot of, well, currently for me, unseen potential. Like I'm very excited to play with that dynamic, and I apologize for the pun. But being able to kind of craft your own back and forth like a good film director would, and as storytellers, we always want to. And then getting experience for that is a really interesting mechanic that I'm very excited to play with more. I also like the pacing of the night scene, kind of having this like balance to what the characters can explore on their own during the daytime, and then just have things happen in the nighttime. I think is a good, it's a very interesting game design. So I'm very excited to be playing this for sure. Wishes. I mean, I just want all of us to sit down at a table and have a big puzzle solving brunch.
What's going on with the ghost? Yeah.
Right.
Maybe
like
more
we
than
all
one
just
ghost
sit
at this
there
point, right?
passing one poached egg to another, trying to figure out like one clue to the other It's I think it'll be fun.
My stars are I love I really I love the characters already. Dr. Tagore's jujitsu on DI Pettigrew was pretty great. I really love that. That was just a nice, like, a bit of levity. It was like a very welcome bit of levity, like at that moment, you know. So I really kind of enjoyed that. And I like that we get to see so many different aspects of the setting through your characters. I wrote it that way, but like it's nice to see it. Like we get this much more like overtly supernatural sort of experience with the vessel. We get this kind of like we got this like nice like science approach, which was pretty cool with Dr. Tagore. We got to have like a pub crawl. We got, we just got to see, we got to see Alexander like kind of manipulating Constance's head, like just the sort of that little parlor kind of games, that was really great. Just So it was just kind of fun to see sort of so many like touchstones of the genre kind of come alive within the characters. That was very enjoyable for me as a viewer. I am very happy with the pacing of the night phase. I like it. Kind of like what Sarah said. It's such a nice counterpoint to how the day phase works, and the energy of it is really enjoyable. My wish is, what I know will happen, because I've run this a lot, is that you all are going to get really good at the Unscene. That is a thing that takes a couple sessions, but once you get there, it's very enjoyable to watch. It's really enjoyable to watch the players once they've achieved mastery on the Unscene and how it works, and kind of to watch them like weave the principal scenes in with that sort of side scene is really, really fun to watch and fun to do. In the beginning, it's always like a little like kind of, kind of higgledy-piggledy, because you're all just kind of learning it. But I'm excited for you all to master it. I think it's gonna be really fun. And then, yeah, so I think that's it for me. Yeah.
While I'm thinking of it, I have a question too about the Janus Mask stuff. Is it possible, if we roll a middling success, to bump it up
Yes.
and use the yeah,
Yep.
okay.
You just go to the next highest tier. So like if you got like a 10 and you wanted to get the 12 plus bonus, you could totally do the Janus Mask to get the 12 plus bonus. I should have made that more clear. It's not just on a fail. So we're on a miss. So. And that's something you can control. And it's also like, because you might want to do it because you want to talk about your character, right? It may not even be like you want the bonus necessarily. It could be, I really want to go and I really want to start talking about this. So I'm going to go ahead and do this now, So that's a decision you get to make.
That's me.
Yeah. That's a totally decision you get to make
gameplay?
for yourself.
In terms of gameplay, do you have a limited number of uses of Janus Mask?
Yes. Once they're gone, you're no longer protected by it. Your character can be killed. So yeah. Or you have to mark the last one. The last on the Mask of the Future is called the Blood-Soaked Portal. That's your character's violent end. So if you don't, the way you can do it is you can mark nothing on the Mask of the Future, just mark Mask of the Past. And before you mark something on the Mask of the Future, you can say, I'm ready to retire my character. And they retire to safety and obscurity. If you retire them before you've marked the Mask of the Future, the first time you mark the Mask of the Future, retiring to safety and obscurity is no longer available to you. The only retirement is death or some dark, tragic future. Yeah. So who wants to go next on Stars and Wishes?
I don't think I have any stars that haven't been mentioned. It was really cool to see the Unscene in action, and really cool to see everyone's contribution to the painting of that scene, if you will. And yeah, I love the characters. I loved Willoughby's bar crawl, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the good doctor get his hands in some guts, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm ready to see the child. So yeah, I'm ready for that first, like, let's get the child going kind of scene. That's my other wish.
I have one more wish as well,
Go for it.
because despite the fact that there was a moment where somebody might have been stuck in a cold body storage drawer, or that perhaps I could have used my person Friday,
yeah. Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
I didn't pop into that scene because I think Willoughby at some point would have been too intoxicated to be of use. So I want to keep that for a sober day move.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a powerful move though, very, very powerful. Like there's probably no move in the game more effective than my person Friday. You're like there, you're ready for action. It's yeah. Oh, another wish. I think next time I want to really explore personal quarters, because personal quarters is how you get better results on your die rolls. The characters numbers wise are a little tough. It's assumed that you're trying to use your personal quarters to get advantages. So we'll talk about that more next time. But it's one of those things. That's another one of those kind of later stage things that comes along soon.
Is My Person Friday a reference to something?
Oh, my Girl Friday, which is
so there's a movie called My Gal Friday, but it was also referring to the move that my character took, in which I have a superpower in which I can just be in a scene ready for action at any time. And if I want, I have an object that will be of use, then I can put that in my personal quarters for later.
the best uses I've seen of it, like when we were doing play testing, is like the characters, or one of the characters is being attacked by a vampire, and the factotum shows up with a cross and a wooden stake. Like they're
Down. I'm ready.
Yeah, it's that kind of moment, right? Awesome. Well, before we go,
let me toss out a thing or two. I'm a sucker for a good gossipy neighbor as a plot device.
Oh yeah.
But the phrasing, the poor sweet young stupid Beales, that just stuck with me. There's a lot of good adjectives in there. And then Mr. Turner starting a fire to scare off spirits that had been burned. That was amazing. It's killed you once, but it might kill you again. You better run. Those were fabulous. I've got a wish that kind of is a question about game mechanics. So we have a single clue regarding the mastermind. Will we build the mastermind collaboratively in the same way that we are building solutions to a mystery? Or do you already have a insight?
In the game, the mastermind is entirely the keepers. So the mastermind is like my character in the game.
Got it. Yeah. So, all right, I wish for more mastermind clues.
Oh, you're going to get it. Speaking of which, before we go, travel with me for a moment. We see our camera pan away from London, leaving London, going out into the country. It's a night, a dark night. Who knows which night? And the camera swoops in to this large manor house out in the country. And we see a scene inside this manor house, inside this grand study. There is a wingback chair. It's back to us, so we can't see who's sitting in it. And an elderly butler handing that person a drink. The person sitting in the chair is looking at a giant wall-sized map of the city of London. They stand up. The person who stands up from the chair is this tall, elegant, stately Black woman with beautiful salt and pepper hair, blue taffeta dress. She goes up to her giant map of London and she puts push pins on it. One pin is at 18 St. James's Street. Another pin is somewhere in Whitechapel. And the third pin is on Hargrave House. And she turns to take a sip from her drink, and we see that beautiful, large blue jewel on her neck glimmering in the candlelight. And she smiles. Scene. I will look forward to seeing you all next week.
Same here.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.